Hey guys, welcome back to another reasoning session, and today I'm going to be talking again about the nature of source, whether source is all good or whether there is some spiteful, vengeful aspect to this source. We're going to delve really deep today and really break down the nature of the words used in translation and how a lot of them are used to manipulate and monopolize people's fear and their souls. But if we actually going to dig right down to it and get right to the bottom of things, we're going to see that this is not what the text is even talking about, and that it's actually outlining a science that actually explains to us not only the nature of the universe, but how we can harness it and actually come out victorious.
Come now and let us reason together. Come now, we can talk it over.
So now I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with an idea of God calling fire and brimstone down from heaven and just wiping out entire cities and nations. You know, we've seen this. I'm sure some of you might have seen my video talking about Elijah and when he called down fire on Mount Carmel. You know, this is the nature that a lot of people attribute to of who God is, particularly with the tradition of the Hebrew understanding of the scriptures. But let's break this down, because in Luke 9, Jesus is actually confronted with this very issue when he's going through Samaria and the Samaritans aren't even going to receive him. And when James and John, two of his disciples, saw this, they say to him in verse 54 of chapter 9 of St. Luke, "Lord, wilt thou that we command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, even as Elias did?" So again, we have this reference to Elijah, what he did in his confrontation with the false prophets of Baal. But Jesus right away turns around and rebukes them and says, "You know not what manner of spirit you are of." Wait a minute. If the God of the Old Testament, if this God of divine justice was the one who called down the fire, the one whom Elijah was basically speaking for, how is it that Jesus turns around and says, you don't even know what spirit you're talking of, trying to call down fire on these people? What did Jesus know that maybe these disciples didn't? When the disciples, such as Philip in St. John chapter 14, ask him, verse 8, Philip says unto him, "Lord, show us the Father, and it suffices us," or it will satisfy us. And Jesus says unto him, "Have I been so long time with you, and yet have you not known me, Philip? He that has seen me has seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, show us the Father? Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father in me, or else believe me for the very work's sake." So we see that Jesus's works, you know, he going around healing and feeding and ministering to people, all of that stuff, that is what the Father represents. It's not this killing and brimstone and divine justice and divine punishment. That's not what Jesus represents, and that's not even what God represents. So what did Jesus know about this? Well, in other passages from the writings of St. John, it says things like God is love, God is light. You know, these things are divine aspects, the nature of what God is. But when we're reading the Hebrew scriptures, we don't see a God of love. We see a God of punishment. We see a God of, you know, wipe them all out, leave no man alive, burn all the crops, men, women, children, you know, that kind of idea. So how can we reconcile this? What did Jesus know that maybe we're not seeing? Well, let's start at the very beginning.
A very good place to start.
In Genesis 1, we read that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the word used for God is actually the Hebrew term Elohim. Now, this term Elohim refers to the divine source, the divine nature in its totality, in its fullness. And all throughout, we see that this is the aspect which is creating throughout Genesis 1. But in considering the writings of St. John, we see that God is love. We can actually read it this way: love created the heavens and the earth. So we go down through Genesis 1 and we're just seeing that Elohim is the one doing all of this. But then we go, after the resting on the seventh day, it says that Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all the work which Elohim created and made. And then it goes on and says, "These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that Yahweh Elohim made the earth and the heavens. Now this is the first time that a name or a description has been added to the term Elohim. What does the term Yahweh mean? Yahweh is the word that's sometimes translated as Jehovah. Usually it's just translated as Lord, all caps, but this is very misleading because the word itself doesn't even mean Lord or Master. There are other Hebrew words that are translated for that. But this word Yahweh actually means God in his cyclical form of seed time and harvest. That which goes around comes around. What you put out is what you get back. As a man sows, so shall you reap. This is the nature of the generations that generate. Once the creative principle has been implemented in the causal realm, in the ether realm, then in the physical realm, the system of generation continues. It's not that God is continuously forming each of us in the dirt and breathing into us. You don't have to breathe into children every time one is born. That same system just continues, and it continues to flow life through that very system. That's why Ecclesiastes also says there's nothing new under the sun, because these generations are just that which continue. It's the part of God that gives life to every seed. After Elohim rests, Yahweh generates. So this is the law of seed time and harvest. And when you read the text, noting the differences in these terms, in these names, it's strikingly glaring in your face. It's never Elohim doing any of the killing. In the Hebrew scriptures, in the Old Testament, it's never Elohim doing any of that destruction. Ever. It's always Lord. It's always Yahweh coming for the harvest. And that harvest is that which the prophets are hearing, that which they know is coming. In Mark 4, the parable is given that a man sows and he sleeps and he rises night and day. He goes all day sowing, but he doesn't realize it, and it grows. But when the harvest is ready, he will get it because that is his seed. So make note that, even in Joshua's story, when he was sent to destroy Jericho, wipe everything out. Man, women, children, leave nothing alive. Not even the booty was allowed to be taken by the Israelites. That is never Elohim. That is never true source in his full goodness. That is the law of recompense, of seed time and harvest, demanding that the seeds sown are ripe to be harvested. Another example is the Amalekites. They tried to wipe Israel off the earth when they came out of Egypt. And what Samuel said to Saul, I saw what Amalek did to Israel when he came out of Egypt. The real translation is, I saw the deposit Amalek made. Now go and kill them all. Because that is Yahweh, Jehovah, the Lord in all caps. This is the law of seed time and harvest in application. God, Elohim, never sent the flood. In fact, it says that the wickedness of man is so great that the chop off, referring to the harvest, the end of this growth season, has come before my face. That word face is actually the word panaim, which is actually refers to the part that turns. Again, referring to the cyclical nature. What goes out has to come back. What goes around comes around. And their seeds have grown up in my system of this government, and now it demands a harvest. And this is actually so against the benevolent, constructive, harmonious nature of Elohim that this whole incident, the way it's described in the text, says that it grieved Yahweh. That Yahweh, in the authorized translation, it says repented. This word in Hebrew is inachem, which comes from the root nacham, which means to sigh heavily due to grief, because of the sadness, because of that regret that this harvest has to come out, that they have to reap a harvest based on what they've sown. So once Noah realized that the flood was coming, it says that he found grace in the eyes of Yahweh, Jehovah. That aspect of source that represents what you put out is what you get back. The cyclical God of seed time and harvest. And then Elohim speaks to him and guides him. So the difference of these names, I mean, it's a brand new book. You've only translated 2 names here, and I get really deep into why we got to translate more of the words so that we get a deeper understanding of, not the literal nature of this book, but the actual meaning of what it's conveying to us in not only our generation, but for our mindset, to actually bring our minds out of the state where we've been held back by physical reality and tap into the nature where we're all really part of this causal reality, manifesting, creating, and setting forth trends and trajectories into the physical world, creating bubbles of reality and actually influencing the world and creating a reality that we know that is in us all along, just waiting to birth forth. So just remember that the covenant that Elohim made with man was never to hurt man, but with the knowledge of both good and evil, guess what? Evil seeds began to get sown. And because of these evil seeds, this is the curse. This is all that the curse of Genesis 3 is about. It's that because you set out these intentions, because you did this without trusting in divine source, because you tried to do things your way through the physical bottom-up dimension, you're going to have to struggle through the physical dimension till you re-achieve that unity with source, that yahida, that absolute oneness with divine source. And once mankind was introduced to the curse, it's not that the curse was implemented at that time, it's that the curse was revealed. It's that because this happened, this is the way it has to be. Once that happened, it says man began to lay violently hold on the infamous Yahweh. That means that all they could do was sow seeds, and after the fall, the curses being announced, they could only continue to sow seeds of lack. They could only continue to sow seeds of disharmony and confusion, and that escalated and culminated with the flood. And that flood was the harvest that Yahweh said, the cutoff of all flesh has come up before me, because their sin is exceedingly great. They have transgressed everything that I have put in place for them, and now look at where they are. So don't let any institution tell you that, oh, God did this to you because, that's the way it is, and the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. I'm going to be covering that, the book of Job, actually, in another future reasoning session, because there's a whole lot there. Once we understand the nature of the names and the terms used to describe aspects of divine source, we're going to realize that it was actually just explaining the process to us all along. This is not some primitive tribal understanding of deities and fetishes and just tribal rituals. This is actually a manifestation manual. This is actually a treatise on how physical reality and actually causal reality works. When we understand the terms and we stop personifying and historicizing everything, we might just be able to apply it to our own personal lives and really step out of that box and really transcend the limits of the monopolies that religious institutions have imposed on us. So, chew on that for a bit. I know I just threw out a whole bunch of heavy at you, but you can handle it, because we are waking up and we are stepping forward and actually creating this world. The whole reason why you listen to this video is because you are learning these things. Source is teaching you these things. It's not me. Source is bringing you to this information, and Source is allowing you to be able to absorb it. So, stay optimistic, because this trend is continuing. The trajectory into a new earth is already well underway, and we are creating these bubble realities that will expand and envelop this whole world in a messianic consciousness. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next video. Joel signing out once again. Agape, Salaam, Namaste, Shalom.